Slater, if you will, to help me out with this illustration. I'm not lynching anybody with a rope I've got, so don't worry. Not doing that, but I'll get you in just a moment to help me out. Ephesians chapter 5, and let's look at let's look at verse 1. Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also hath loved us, and hath given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and uncleanness and covetousness, let it not be once named among you, as becometh saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, nor or who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no man deceive you with vain words, because of these things, because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them, for ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light. For whatsoever doth make manifest is light. Wherefore he saith, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. You notice here, Paul gives us a list of things that we ought not to do. He deals with the with the fruit of the Spirit. Shortly after this, Paul deals with let's read it. Let's do that. Verse 17. Wherefore be not unwise. Again, he's talking about being unwise as he did when he talked about redeeming before, about being wise then. Be not unwise, same thing, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And be not drunk with wine wherein it is excess, but be ye filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for all things unto God and the Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of the Lord. He goes on talking about who ought to be submitting themselves to who, and but he lists a whole list of things that we ought to do, and things that we ought not to do. And he couples this with our time, along with being led of the Holy Spirit. When he talks about be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit. That word filled there is the word it means to control. And that's why he gives the illustration there, be not drunk with wine. Notice it doesn't say too in excess, like a lot of people want to make it say so they can give themselves an allowance of how much alcohol they can drink. It's not what it says. Be not drunk with wine wherein is excess. It means it's something that though some may do, you don't have to do that in life. In fact, Christians ought to have no part in that. Just as much as the other negative things that are mentioned, we ought to have no part in it. We ought not to even joke or jest about it. Because somebody might hear you and think you're being serious, or in their mind, it might help them to overcome that roadblock or barrier in their life to thinking it's okay by diminishing it in humor, or the seriousness of it in humor. So, he couples that with redeeming your time. In one spot, he talks about how we ought to prepare ourselves. In yesterday's, it's how we go about redeeming the time as far as preparing ourselves to deal with the loss. Prayer, being alone with God, studying His Word. Here it's about what we ought not to and what we ought to spend our time on. Paul in this passage, and for the sake of time I won't go into it, gives 2 times he gives a reality check. Maybe someday if I have time I'll go back. I believe I want to say it's verse 8 and verse 13, but I'd have to go back and look. He gives 2 reality checks to this. And I think a lot of times our perception of time is wrong, as well as our perception of how we use our time is wrong. If my daughter watches this one, Daddy's not upset with you, but he's using you as an object lesson, right? For the heart grave, you can tell your daughter, every dad does, right? Amen. My daughter will sometimes go for a very long time forgetting to get her homework done. And she's like, I told you I was just getting ready to do it. No, you told me that 2 hours ago. You have a bad perception of time here. I'm just getting ready to do it implies to me you're going to finish this up right here and then you're going to go do it. It doesn't imply to me you're going to finish this up and then do 12 other things. And that's not, no, your perception's wrong of it. But I think a lot of times we like her, we get upset when it's pointed out how we're actually using our time. Paul here points out to him, we need to redeem our time. We need to think about how we use our time. Time is short. Life is precious. Man wasn't created to die, but because of sin, man dies. Thank God for the Redeemer, that we can live forevermore. But with that said, you will be physically dead a whole lot longer than you will be alive physically. So what do you mean? Go to George Washington's grave. Look at when he died. Look at when he was born and when he died, and then look at today's date. He's been dead a whole lot longer than he lived. We have a very short window of time to do things for Christ. And it's important that we redeem that time, that we literally buy it up. It means to buy back or to buy up. It's almost as if you had something that you neglected and then it was destroyed, and you went to the market and you bought another item just like it because you remembered how valuable it was to you and how much it helped you out in your life, and you wish you hadn't neglected, but you went back and purchased it. Or as if you were walking through the market and you're looking through and you see a bunch of things, and you value the money in your pocket, but you realize all those things are necessary for your life. So you start going in and just buying them up. With not that it's completely with no regard to the money, but the money is not the main thing. It's having those things that you need to be successful. You buy them up. My wife will tell you I'm not cheap. I am frugal. But when it comes to ministry, if it's necessary, she'll tell you, I'm buying it. If it's truly necessary for ministry, that's not going to suffer. Because that's the work of the Lord. And that has eternal consequences. Not only does it have eternal reward, but it has eternal consequences. So we redeem the time. I think a lot of people I'm going to use this as an illustration. There's multiple times in the Bible where rope is referred to, all right? Or it's implied that there was rope. I think of 3 where it's implied, and you can go back and look see if it's expressly mentioned or if it's just implied. I think it's just implied. You have one where Paul was a basket case. If you know what I'm talking about, Paul was let down the wall in a basket. The other one is where Paul is on the ship, and they're measuring it, and they're counting it 20 fathoms, 15 fathoms, and they're having to measure this quick because they had just perceived they were near some land. And they know they're about to not only be shipwrecked, but they're about to be destroyed if they don't get it right. And they've got to get that measurement just right so they can drop the anchors out at a time in which the anchors will be, because they're limited how much rope you can carry, and you need the anchors to be at a certain angle to have the greatest potential to stop the thing and do the least amount of damage. So it was crucial that they knew that depth and they had that rope right. What do we say? And the other one I was thinking of was when the men brought their friend and let him down through the roof. And I know it doesn't say rope there, but I don't think they just got up on top, ripped the roof off, and took their friend and went, all right, let the bed down, and dropped him. I don't think they did that. Pretty confident you say, well, you don't know that. It doesn't say that. I got a good sneaky suspicion, and I think I'll go with that they probably had rope tied to it. I don't think the roof was so short that they could just reach down. I'm pretty confident they did that. Most people, I think they see it as we've got lots and plenty of rope, just tons of rope. We got plenty of time. But the reality is we really don't. You have 168 hours in a week. Okay? I wrote down some things. I looked up and was looking to see where the average person spends their time, looked at some studies by different groups, even Harvard had one on it. The average person sleeps 8 hours a day. The average person eats for 67 minutes a day. I'm not sure how they got it that precise, but hey. The average person drives 101 minutes a day to and from work or wherever they're going. The average person, this is nationwide, the average person works 40 hours per week or 8 hours per day on a 5-day work week. The average person spends 46 hours per week or 6.57 hours per day, 7 days a week, surfing the internet, either surfing the internet, TV, social media, or things they're about on devices. They spend more time doing that than they do working. Let's see, the average person spends between cleaning and shopping and the restroom. They spend 1 hour and 10 minutes per day, not per week, but per day. Shopping, that's in the next one. Shopping, the average person spends 45 minutes per day on average. And I think they take that because the average person is either shopping on the internet. There's some interconnectivity there, but also a lot of people go out and they do their shopping on maybe 1 or 2 times, and it adds up to a couple of hours or whatever, okay? When you add that up, you get that's a total of 27.20 hours a week. Or day, 27.20 hours per day. More days, or more hours in one day than you have hours in a day. It makes you wonder, why? How is that possible that they spend more than... Because the average person, when they're supposed to be doing one thing, is doing another. When they're supposed to be sleeping, they're staying up looking on the internet. When they're supposed to be working, they're on the internet with their phones. Today, people are on their devices on social media at all times of it when they shouldn't be. I like to look up meanings of words and stuff, so I try to be careful in church if I'm going to use my phone to do that, because I want to be very careful that nobody thinks I'm on the internet while I'm at church. But I can tell you, I have been in different churches, plenty of different churches, and I have taken up offerings in different churches, and I've seen people on video games as I was walking by. Okay? I have seen them and unashamedly just sitting there. I'm like, well, should just reach over and go, yes, sir, I understand. You're redeeming the time. I'll take that. And put that in and keep going. Well, what are they going to do? You know? What are they going to do? Get upset or something? Yeah. It's just light. It's just light. It's just going to shine some light on the problem. You notice I never said I actually did that. Those are the things you think, but you may not do. We waste a lot of time with it. So let me give you a visual of it. Like I said, most people, I think, so you want to help me here? Most people, grab that end, hold it by the end, if you will, back up there so you're not directly in front of the camera. Most people think they got endless time, and they live their life that way. They don't schedule their days. They don't plan their days. they'll start from, they'll have intention to go from point A to point B, and between point A and point B, they'll find 500 things else to do because they don't want to structure their lives. They don't want to schedule their days, their weeks, their months. They don't want to be tied down to that. They want to kind of just free-spiritedly go through life and enjoy their time as if there's not going to be any consequences to it, as if they live to themselves. Most people, I believe, live like that, thinking, if I need a little more time, just take a little more time and take a little more time, take a little more time. I didn't get that done, or I should have been studying that before I had a chance to talk with this family member, or to maybe be prepared for soul winning or something like that. Well, I'll just take more time. The reality is you don't have endless time. You have 168 hours in a week, and since I did not want to try to put 168 feet of rope in this room, I did 168 inches, representing 1 hour per inch. So this is the reality. This may be perception, but the reality is this is about all you really have right there. I'm going to swap you into the rope, if you will, please. So if you think about it like this, if the average person, if we cut back the time a little and say that maybe you only, some people don't need 8 hours of sleep. I get that. Some people need 6. Some people need 9. I get that. But let's say we go for something more like 7 hours for sleep, and we reduce everything down. Eating, maybe we only have eating, we do 45 minutes. We cut back, we push back. Maybe we practice that message I preached the other day on gluttony. Thank you. I was trying to forget that. Thank you, Miss Linda, for bringing that up. No. But if you take the average work week or sleep, there's not much you can do with that other than use that time wisely and actually rest when you're supposed to. If you take your eating, well, you can eat less, that's for sure. But if you cut it all out and completely, we'll be having your funeral, right? So you got to eat. Those are things you can't get back. Come over this way, a little closer there, brother. It's getting short. Driving, if you want to have a job, you're probably going to have to drive. If you want to get food, you're probably going to have to drive. Even though our government doesn't seem to think so by the cost of gas, you're going to have to. Working, if a man doesn't work, shouldn't eat, right? And each time you go along and you start taking off the necessary things, it just gets shorter and shorter. And this is all the time you have left. At the end of the week, this is about all you have left. I bet Paul was probably happy, the guy that ran and grabbed the rope, used his time wisely and got enough rope to get him down to the bottom. I bet the man on the bed was grateful that the man had enough rope to get him to the bottom, get him to Christ. Not only did he get him to Christ, but he gave Christ an opportunity to be glorified and show who he was. He had the ability to forgive sins on earth. I think if we don't use our time wisely, we're going to find ourselves out of a lot of time and not able to reach those that we are called to reach. The only thing you can do is start finding some pieces of it. Internet, maybe go to bed when we're supposed to. Maybe start redeeming the time, and we can start buying back some of that time, and maybe we have a greater chance to reach further and do more for the cause of Christ. I guess it's a bit of a reality check sometimes when you see it. We don't have as much time as we think. I'm not getting younger, I'm getting older. I value my time. Most of you know Fridays, I'm going to be heading out pretty quick on a Friday so I can try to get home and spend time with my daughter. She values that time. I value that time. She has no problems with me working hard for the Lord. She loves it. My wife does too, because I try to make sure I take the time for them as well. I try to use my time wisely. I don't count myself to be much of anything, but I do want to try to be everything I can for the Lord.